Good morning, everybody. Thanks to the big crowd that showed up this morning at 8:30 for our work session. This is just to gather information and ask questions, and we're going to go ahead and start. First of all, we need to adopt the agenda as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jim. A second. Diane, any discussion? All in favor, signify with aye.
Aye.
All right. Now back to the agenda. This morning, we are honored to have Ms. Jill Nixon, who is going to present our fiscal year 2023 audit. And what we will do is we will let her go through her presentation, and then if we have questions or concerns or comments, we'll do it afterwards. Is that okay with you, Johnny?
That'd be great.
All right, it's all yours, girl.
So thank you for having me this morning. It's a little bit different in how I'm presenting, in that the audit has not been finalized yet. I've got a draft copy here and I'm gonna share that with you. I don't expect the numbers to change. But as you know, on your agenda is a budget amendment resolution, and that deals with 23.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why that resolution is there is because there was a compliance finding last year being over budget in the general fund. So the general fund, you know, for state purposes, has to balance out. And if you are over, you know, there needs to be amendments made. You can make those through the year or before the audit is completed. And so we've got a draft, we're ready to go, we're just kind of waiting on that compliance piece just to make sure. So,
I'm gonna break my own rule here.
No, that's fine.
Just ask a question. If we adopt the resolution, does that negate the finding?
yes,
Okay.
I mean, we haven't even done that piece of it because we're waiting, and so that's the only
Right.
piece of it that I don't have. So I'm gonna give these to you as a draft, but I will take them back up, and then when I have the final copy,
Okay.
you will get it.
Okay,
Those.
great.
Okay. So and what you're gonna see, we've done the budget as if you've passed it. We
Okay,
just haven't done the compliance part of it,
gotcha.
okay? So you can use that to tag along, but mainly, you know, in the graphing, you know, this is a summary of what's in the audit.
Okay,
Everything went well. There were a few just minor things, you know, that I've spoken with Jason about, and it has to do with posting. And I'm planning on coming up, hopefully in July, towards the end, maybe to sit with Karen on some things. The main thing, you know, if you guys were to run a financial today, you have a different system for your property tax revenue, and all the receipts are being taken into this general ledger accounting system. But from the tax digest, that bulk amount just needs to be recorded in there. So if you were to pull it, you would see very little in property tax revenue on the books, accounting books, even though you've taken in all these receipts, they're being recorded in property tax receivables. So you'll see that looking like it's been prepaid, so to speak, just because that bulk entry's not been made. So, and that's more of it's just one bulk entry that needs to be made at tax time, and we'll go over that.
That's the way people do that.
Yes. So typically when that entry is made, it goes, like for you all, it would go into a deferred revenue account at the end of the year, and then your property tax receivables, and then that at the beginning of the next year, you move it from that deferred over into revenue actually, so you can see it sitting there.
Sure.
So, but government-wide, if you look at, it's actually page 3 on the slide. Government-wide, you're gonna see your revenues were over 3 million in 23, about 11% increase from 22. Expenses were also up, and those were up by about 20% in comparison to 22. A lot of projects going on, government-wide, and you'll see that as we go through. So this is every fund, you know, government-wide total. So over 3 million in revenue, about 2.5 million in expenses. If you're referring, if you're gonna refer to the draft, the government-wide statements are on page 4 and 5. So this has, all your governmental activities into one column, and then all your business type activities. So your governmental activities include the T-SPLOST and the SPLOST funds and the ARPA funds, as well as the general fund. Okay. This self-sufficiency ratio that we run, this is how the extent to which the charges for services, how much you're covering that. And of course, when your expenses go up, this is gonna go down. And it did decrease in 23. This is more important, I think, when we get to the enterprise fund, the water and sanitation, because you want to make sure that you're charging enough to cover, for those services. So government-wide, it was 32.7%.
What's the benchmark for that? Where should we be?
Government-wide is so hard, because generally, you're really not, you're just providing those services. When we get to the enterprise, you want that, you want that to be 80 or above, I would say, to know that you're charging enough to take care of everything in those funds.
Now, the other 68% is what? That's services that we provide that we don't.
If you're not getting revenue.
Okay.
For.
So this is primarily the business accounts, the water and solid
Primarily,
waste?
yes, in
Okay.
licenses and permits, it does not include property tax, okay?
Does not
It
include,
does not include property tax.
right, okay, thank you. Why is that important then, what, self-sufficiency?
I think as a council, and like I said, when we get to enterprise, it's, the business fund is gonna
Right,
be
it's a
more
requirement.
important, because as you look to your budgeting, and the cost of everything is going up, if you have to increase, your water rates or your garbage rates, that is where this is gonna come into play. Your licensing zone, you have no control really over the fines and forfeitures, right? And that is included in this. Your licensing and permits, maybe something you wanna look at. That's part of this ratio, but in the general fund, it's really that licensing piece that you have control over in this, aside from the millage. And that really doesn't go into play here.
We are in process of doing a rate study because of these factors that you're discussing.
Yeah.
We hope to have that here completed in the next probably 45, 60 days. So,
Good.
so yeah, we are aware of what's of the.
A
of that.
professional.
And you're gonna see this, bro, you're gonna see this again when we start talking about the water and garbage fund.
Okay,
Okay, and it may be something that it's maybe a little bit confusing here, but I think when we get to that piece, it's gonna,
So this is just an indice to say, we need to maybe take a look at it.
yeah.
Okay,
Government-wide.
gotcha. Okay. Okay.
As far as your debt, your debt service ratio continues to decrease. It's very low. It's less than 5%. The debt consists in the water fund, and that is about $960,000. The lease that you had on the police vehicle was paid off in 23, so there's no debt in the general fund. So.
This is a good thing.
Yes, yes. Leverage talks about the extent of how your assets are financed with long-term debt. And again, because the debt is decreasing, it's very low. It's 10% of your total assets government-wide are financed with debt. And as far as your capital assets, you have over 9.2 million, or, at the end of December. And that comprises about 53% of your total assets. And of course, the other piece of that, are your bank accounts and your receivables. And
So
that-
capital assets are not just our equipment, but our real estate
Yes,
and the water
building
pipes that
your
are in the
infrastructure,
ground. Okay,
absolutely.
it's a very comprehensive number.
Next, we're gonna talk about the general fund. And if you were to follow along with these statements, the general fund starts on page 6. For itself, and it's page 6 through 8. You'll see the general fund revenues increased slightly in 23. Expenses decreased by about 9%, so by 148,000 expenses decreased. So as we talk about the budget for the general fund, and I know you guys are looking at that, you did go over, but you also took in more revenue. So the bottom line is you still had a positive effect on the bottom line, but you did take in more revenue. So otherwise you wouldn't be able to amend. Because you have to balance.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Of your revenue, of course, no big surprise for your 80% is made up of all the taxes. And property taxes are about 81% of that overall. Charges for services on this is your fines and forfeitures, your licensing, your permitting, your intergovernmental revenues are your grants that you receive, and then investment earnings. And gosh, kudos, I guess, Jason, going back to the bank and asking
Yes.
about interest, because you're gonna see
Yeah.
that increase significantly over the 22.
Yes, we thank Jason for that.
Yeah,
He went fought for us at times.
not much change in these ratio percentages from year to year. You'll see the tax ratio did decrease a little bit to 80%, but that was, only because, your investment ratio went up a little bit more. So the investment ratio increased from 2% to 8%.
Say that again, Julie, what you just said.
The investment, the ratio on your earnings, your interest income increased in 22, it was 2% and increased to 8% in 23 of your overall revenue.
Right.
And that's just because interest rates went up.
Yes. Expense wise, what percentage do the different departments make up total expenses? General government is a third, 33%. Your police and courts is another third of that. And then everything else, you'll see the biggest portion of the other things are the public works and streets, which is 18%. And on page 13, not much difference between the 2 years as far as ratios. You will see that public works streets, that ratio went significantly down. And then general and police and courts went up a little bit.
What do we attribute that to?
Within the public works.
Yeah, when that,
The T-Splosh, we're able to, a lot of those expenditures, we're able to defer that to the.
Right. So all the paving that you were having to do in the general fund is now being done in that T-Splosh.
Say that again, Julie.
The paving that you all would normally see in that public works street department area is now being done in the T-Splosh.
Aha,
So that
Cool.
accounts for that significant decrease.
yeah, we're big believers in T-Splosh.
Yeah,
Amen.
there's actually, the leverage page on page 14, there is no debt. at the end of 23 in the general fund. That was paid off. We had one lease on a police vehicle, and that was completely paid in full. We have an analysis on the SPOS, which is mainly your T-SPOS. We had a little bit of interest revenue in the other SPOS, and that was completely closed out in 23. But you'll see on page 16, the revenues taken in were 646,825. Expenditures were 522,897. Typically, those expenses would be in the general fund. Which, if you remember, when we were talking about your expenses, you know, and the general fund went down by 148,000, so this kind of helps. You know, that.
A bunch.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna talk about the enterprise fund, which makes up your water and your sanitation. Those are on, I believe, page 9 through 11 in the audit. You'll see the total revenues in this fund did increase from 22, about not close to 60,000. Expenditures increased by 122,000. You all are doing lots of projects on this side. So that is the reason for the increase in the infrastructure. Now on page 19, the charges for the services. So this is kind of what we were talking about with that self-sufficiency ratio. So you'll see your overall operating revenues come in at over 730,000. Your total expenses are 822,000. So in 23, you're covering about 89% of your expenses. That was a little bit closer to in 23, and of course in 21, you were kind of over that. So you've got kind of an inversion going on, but not terrible. And with the amount of projects that you're doing, the infrastructure projects that you're putting in, some of that is to be expected. Obviously, you're not going to go up on your rates here, or you may, or slightly, or you know, whatever. But so does this give you a better picture? Because this is really where you have control over those rates and how much of the expense that you cover in this area.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, I thought I was looking at the business services, but I didn't see it on the label. And that was where my hesitation was coming from.
Right.
Thank you.
So debt ratios in this fund, of course, this is the only debt that's in this fund, those GPA loans, and that is decreasing as you pay off the principal. One of those is at no interest, by the way. So debt ratios, you'll see that decrease every year, so that 13% in 23. And as far as how much of your assets are leveraged by this, 25% of your assets are leveraged by the debt. Capital just analyzes the condition of your capital assets given their remaining useful life. And, you know, a higher ratio in this category just means that you're reinvesting in your infrastructure. It has decreased. It's 43%. I'm thinking Jason and I were talking in 24. There's some loans coming in. I know you guys are going to be investing in some infrastructure for sewers. So you're probably going to see this ratio go up for 24. If we're looking at the budget that you all are going to be doing, as I said, we've got it in here as if you're going to be doing the resolution. It is on page. So the numbers have been plugged as far as what you guys are going to be looking at, because otherwise the areas that we're over are the areas that you're approving, you know, for general government, police.
What page are you on, Julie?
Page 9.
9. Okay.
But you'll see your actual numbers in that third column. And if you'll look at the very bottom, the net change in your fund balance was 131,476. That's to the positive. So, you know, if that were a loss, then you would not be able to do an amendment. Any questions?
Council, y'all have any questions or comments at this point?
Just going back to the capital, that's a number that is based on original cost minus depreciation. Okay,
Yes.
you don't do an actual survey of.
No.
Okay.
No,
Thank
it's
you.
booked at original cost, of course, you know, depending on, I mean, your land and your buildings, I know worth more than what you paid for it years ago. Equipment maybe not so, vehicles maybe not so, but.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other comments or questions from the council? Okay, I think we have one gentleman online. Does he have any comments or questions for Ms. Mixon or the council? We shake his head no. Okay, okay. Well,
That was easy.
that was easy. Not for you, but for us.
And you will get, like I said, you'll get a final copy. When you get that final copy, if you have questions, you know, feel free to reach out, but I don't expect the numbers to change. The reason why we just
Right.
didn't finalize is because we had to wait and see what we were dealing with as far as compliance. So.
And generally, we're in good shape.
Mhm.
That's good to know.
Thank you.
Jason, do you need to make any comments at this point or wait till the 10 o'clock meeting?
I was just gonna, I can discuss the resolution at the end, but,
Yeah.
just wanna thank Ms. Mixon
Yeah.
for.
Getting up early, driving all the way over here.
She's always a great resource to call on throughout the year, even when we're not in audit season. So, we do our best and we try to be very diligent with the city's fines and we'll continue to do so.
And we appreciate it. Thank you very much. And Jolie, I'm gonna need one more for another council member that's not here. If you, I will put it in his mailbox.
I've marked on this one. Let me, I will
We
send.
can copy one.
We
I'll
can copy
send
it.
one
We'll
over.
copy it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we'll
good.
do that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. And, after you guys, if you'll just be in touch with me. Okay, and we'll get that on.
Thank you, Jolie.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. A motion to adjourn.
So was
Okay.
What was I thinking?
What were you thinking? All right, Tony and Dan have moved, Ms. Karen. All in favor, say aye. Okay,
Aye.
it is done. All right.
I just realized we have 2 hours.